Chair calls Laura Tamez.
She stayed.
We show you registered Laura Tamez with the Texas Trial Lawyers Association. You're registered against HB 3520, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the committee, my name is Laura Tamez. I am a past president of Texas Trial Lawyers Association. I am here on their behalf and individually testifying respectfully in opposition to the bill. I want to start out by thanking Chairman Spiller for listening to our concerns and visiting with us. We very much appreciate it, as well as the encouragement to visit with the stakeholders. The good news is we are going to continue those conversations. But here are the concerns. We are talking about period 2, which appears on page 2 of the bill. Period 2 is a very important time period, and this is why. We all know that when we get into a ride share, there are time limits. Your ride's going to be here in 4 minutes. Your ride's going to be here in 10 minutes. It correlates to tips. If they're late, maybe the tip's not as good. But more importantly, this also includes food delivery. So I can choose on my rideshare app if I want to expedite my food delivery. I just have to pay a higher fee. And so when we're looking at the time period of incentives, here's the reality. So because you are dropping the coverage to 50,000 versus the million. So a case where a driver is on the way to the pickup, late for the pickup, can't find or late for the pickup and runs a red light. And there is a 15-year-old boy who is crossing or in a pedestrian crosswalk who is hit, strikes the windshield, and has lifelong care or will need that and is disabled at 15. So that would be one. Another one, and I'll just wrap up on this, a 6-year-old being hit, again, in a crosswalk pedestrian. There's another instance of food delivery. They were taking food delivery, hit and killed a woman, a pedestrian. So since there is an incentive to be a little faster and an incentive to do that, then that's why we're looking at the
thank
policy.
you for your testimony. Questions of the witness. Representative Gonzalez.
Yes. Hi. So do commercial motor vehicles like 18-wheelers reduce their policy limits to the minimum if they're not carrying or transporting a load from point A to point B?
So right. So the reason there's these policy coverages right now, like the $1 million policy when you are on the way to the pickup or you have a passenger, is because of the increased risk. So 18-wheelers, for example, who are specialized in their training, they have special licenses, they are given time off for sleep, they are regulated in how long they can drive, which doesn't exist in the rideshare universe, then they have to carry policy limits of between 750,000 to 5 million, depending on the load, the cargo, the passenger. But there isn't a provision that reduces that when they don't have a load, or they don't have a cargo, or they don't have a passenger. The provisions remain as long as they are traveling from point A to point B for commercial use, furthering the business of, it could be an independent contractor and an employee, then the provisions remain the same because there's still that increased risk of harm for the motoring public.
And so you referenced, and it's only when they're carrying the load, right? So what kind of cases are out there where a rideshare driver is not carrying a passenger but gets into a car crash?
Right, well, and that would be the time period for the pickup where there's increased distraction, perhaps of reading the map to find the pickup location, looking for the passenger before the pickup, which is different than the passengers already in the vehicle. And then, of course, the food delivery, especially if you can expedite your time and you're typing notes like, I'm wearing a great sweatshirt if you can bring me my food. All of that is creating a distracted environment. And I believe that the policy that was foreseen was because of that potential risk, that we just want to make sure that the burden of costs will not be shifted to including the driver, because the driver is the one who ran the red light, and there would be lower coverage. So not just the driver, but then the family.
So what about, because I've been seeing them around Austin lately, the autonomous vehicles, which kind of freak me out, but.
Right. So autonomous vehicles are coming onto the platform. They're transitioning from the pilot program to being established, right? So that adds there's algorithms of when they have to be there, what their time limits are going to be. They're supposed to be faster than someone actually driving the car. So there's an incentive to try to get to the autonomous vehicle, but we're going to see more of that in June, is what we're told, that we're going to be seeing more autonomous vehicles around the state, and that is also a concern, especially because the rideshare companies in Texas have opted out of uninsured motorist coverage. And so because we have a choice, right, in Texas. And so they used to buy it when they first came on the platform, and they don't anymore.
And are there any studies that you're aware of that have, like, that, I guess, with car crashes or accidents, versus when it's in a rideshare kind of situation?
There are some studies out there. There is some data that is specific to, I saw one as I was preparing, specific to Lyft, that during 2020 to 2022, while their crashes reduced, the fatalities increased. So when you've got a fatality, then you're looking again at that $50,000 coverage that's exposure for the company and the driver.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Morgan.
So regarding the uninsured motorist bit that you
Yes.
mentioned, they dropped that. That's involved if somebody else is at fault for the accident, right? If they're at fault for the accident, then they pick up the tab. If it's somebody else's fault, it's not their tab. Is that correct?
So, assuming there's a passenger in the vehicle, right, and they are hit by an opposing driver and it's their fault, they may be uninsured, and that is exactly right.
Right, which I know we have an issue with that in the state. We're working I've got a piece of legislation to maybe help address some of that stuff.
Wonderful.
Yes, so, and then would you be, I understand you're opposed to, the $50K. There are other ways to write insurance, like combined single limits, are you more agreeable to, combined single limits? I think it covers the issue Trey Wharton, Representative Wharton brought up, which is no vehicle is, $25K anymore.
Right.
They're all worth a lot more, but it also covers more in, potentially for a single bodily injury case.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Representative.
Yep.
Anyone else? Okay. Is there anyone?